Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Deuteronomy chapter 27 in a clear and simple way, step by step.
Now, before we really get into the weeds here, I want you to imagine something. Imagine standing on the very edge of a massive, life-altering transition. Well, that's exactly where the Israelites are right now. Moses is giving them these instructions right before they cross the Jordan River to enter the land. 40 years of desert wandering are literally coming to an end. It's a highly physical, incredibly dramatic set of instructions, and it's completely meant to solidify them as a unified nation before they even take their very first steps into their new home. It's like the ultimate preparation manual. Here's our game plan for today. We'll go chronologically through the chapter. First, the stones in the altar, then Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, followed by the 12 curses, some key clarifications, and finally, we'll wrap up with practical lessons. Just as a quick heads up, as we go through the text today, we're going to focus strictly on what's called the Peshat. Now, if you're not familiar, Peshat refers to the most basic, literal meaning of the text, right in its original context. So we're looking exactly at what the text plainly says. We're zeroing in on the simple, practical instructions Moses is handing down. And we're totally skipping any deep, symbolic, or mystical interpretations. Just the plain facts today. Okay, section 1. The stones and the altar. Preparing for the land.
Right off the bat, in the first 4 verses, Moses lays out a really clear 5-step procedure for the exact moment Israel enters the land. Like literally step 1, cross the Jordan. Then immediately upon crossing, step 2, they have to set up these massively large stones on Mount Ebal. Step 3, they're instructed to coat these stones with plaster. Now you might be wondering, why plaster? Well, this ancient technique actually provided a really smooth, bright white surface so that, step 4, the words of the law could be written super clearly and visibly for absolutely everyone to see. It made the ink really pop in that harsh, desert-like environment. And finally, step 5, they must build an altar. So you see, they aren't just thinking about the law in their heads, they're physically, literally writing it right into the landscape of their brand new reality.
From there, Moses pivots to the altar itself. He gives this very specific, almost counterintuitive architectural command regarding where the burnt and fellowship offerings will be sacrificed. He says, "Build there an altar to the Lord your God, an altar of stones. Do not use any iron tool upon them." Now that's a really fascinating detail, right? It requires the Israelites to follow a super strict rule for construction, no iron tools whatsoever. To clarify this whole no iron tool rule, verse 6 specifies the use of unhewn stones. In the original Hebrew, the phrase used here is avanim shlemot, which translates more literally to whole or complete stones. So what does that mean practically? It means the altar has to be built exactly as the stones are found in nature, just gathered straight up from the field. You absolutely cannot cut, chisel, or shape them with human tools. The basic literal idea here is actually quite beautiful. You see, iron is a material used to make swords and weapons of war, right? But the altar represents peace between God and humanity, so it has to remain completely whole, untouched by instruments of violence. At this perfectly natural altar, the people are commanded to offer their sacrifices, eat, and just rejoice together. Then, in verses 9 and 10, Moses and the Levitical priests do something really striking. They suddenly pause all these physical instructions to demand absolute pin-drop silence. The Hebrew word used here is hashket. It's a really unique, intense command to be quiet, to be perfectly still, and to pay deep, deep attention. Moses is hammering home the point that on this very day, through this very covenant, they have officially, fully become a unified people unto God. Because of this monumental shift in who they are, strict obedience to His voice, His commandments, and His statutes is absolutely required moving forward. It's a real line in the sand moment. Moving on to section 2, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, the geographical stage. Let's see how Moses literally builds the stage for this covenant. So Moses takes the 12 tribes and divides them perfectly in half to create this massive living ceremony. 6 tribes, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin, are commanded to go stand on Mount Gerizim to bless the people. Now notice the genealogy here. These are all direct descendants of Jacob's primary wives, Leah and Rachel. The other 6 tribes? They have to go stand on the completely opposite mountain, Mount Ebal, to represent the curses. This second group consists of the descendants of the handmaids, Bilhah and Zilpah, along with Reuben, who you might remember lost his firstborn status, and Zebulun, Leah's youngest, who is there just to perfectly balance out the numbers. This physical division is brilliant,
because it ensures the entire nation participates in establishing the parameters of their new society.
Verse 14 then sets up the mechanism for how this giant, booming ceremony will actually work. The Levites are placed right in the middle. They're instructed to speak and recite the terms of the covenant to all the men of Israel in a loud voice. I want you to picture the natural acoustics of the valley stretching between these two towering mountains. It basically acts like a massive natural amphitheater. The Levites project these rules loudly into the open space, ensuring every single person hears the strict, non-negotiable boundaries of their new community. Nobody can say they didn't hear the rules. All right, Section 3, the 12 curses, boundaries of the community. Instead of just reading these out one by one, we've organized them by theme so you can easily grasp exactly what is being forbidden. Let's kick things off with verses 15 and 24, which highlight the severe, severe danger of hidden sins. The text uses the Hebrew word arur, which means cursed, to fiercely condemn anyone who carves an image or makes an idol in secret. And verse 24 curses the man who kills his neighbor secretly. It's really interesting that the text deliberately places these hidden sins right at the forefront, don't you think? It highlights things done in the dark, totally away from the eyes of human judges or public scrutiny. The big takeaway here is that the very foundation of the law starts with what you do when literally no one else is looking. And after each of these booming declarations, all the people are commanded to answer and shout Amen. The focus then shifts heavily toward protecting the vulnerable and maintaining fair social boundaries. This is verses 16 through 19 and verse 25. The text explicitly curses dishonoring your parents, moving a neighbor's landmark to steal their land, intentionally leading a blind person astray, and perverting justice for the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. It also specifically curses taking a bribe to slay an innocent person. Now, these are not just abstract high-level concepts. These verses are creating a clear, literal, day-to-day baseline for basic human decency. They are insisting that a healthy, functioning society absolutely must forcefully defend those who cannot easily defend themselves.
Next up, verses 20 through 23 established really strict boundaries regarding familial respect and sexual morality. By plainly forbidding incestuous relationships, like sleeping with a father's wife, a sister, or a mother-in-law, as well as strictly forbidding bestiality, the text is securing the most intimate moral fabric of the community. A nation's stability really begins inside the home, and these prohibited relationships represent a severe, foundational violation of trust and natural order. And again, to every single one of these loud declarations echoing through the valley, the entire nation is completely unified in answering Amen. Finally, verse 26 acts as this sort of comprehensive seal to the entire list of curses. It reads, "Cursed be he that confirmeth not the words of this law to do them." So this isn't just about avoiding the specific major sins we just listed. It demands a total active dedication to upholding every single word of the law. There's no picking and choosing what you want to follow. And for the 12th and final time, finalizing this immense covenant, all the people say, Amen. Moving on to Section 4, Key Ideas and Clarifications, Understanding the Ceremony. Let's just pause for a second and clarify a couple of the underlying concepts to make sure we deeply understand the magnitude of what just happened. The absolutely crucial point here is the constant repetition of the word Amen. In Hebrew, the root of the word Amen actually connects to truth, belief, and confirmation. It literally means so be it, or it is true. In this specific setting, standing by the mountains, it's not just some polite way to end a prayer. It is a unified, binding verbal contract. By shouting Amen all together, the Israelites are legally and morally agreeing to the terms. They're publicly acknowledging that these are the communal rules they will actively enforce upon themselves from this day forward. And this whole event brilliantly illustrates how physical acts are used to create a permanent, visceral memory. Think about it. Moses didn't just stand up and give them some dry, boring speech. No way. He told them to plaster massive stones, write the law on them plainly, build an altar exactly as the whole stones came from the earth, and physically march to stand on two opposite mountains. They learned the law by participating in a massive, unforgettable geographic and architectural event. It fully engaged all their senses, ensuring they literally never forget it.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Lessons and Chapter Recap, Applying the Text.
So, what does all this mean for us today? These physical and moral boundaries aren't just some dusty, ancient history. They actually ask us a really direct, powerful question about how we conduct our own lives right now. The instructions given to the Israelites before crossing the Jordan are incredibly relevant to how we build and maintain our own communities today. In fact, the plain text teaches us 3 deeply practical lessons. First,
True character is absolutely defined by what we do in secret. Ask yourself, when no one else is watching, are we still acting justly and refusing to compromise our values? Second, a healthy society must protect those who cannot protect themselves. Honoring our parents, guiding the blind, and standing up for the alien and the widow, those are non-negotiable traits of a truly moral community. And third, we share a massive communal responsibility. Just like the Israelites shouting amen in total unison, we have to actively hold each other accountable to do what's right.
So, to quickly recap our whole explainer today, Chapter 27 gives us the literal step-by-step blueprint for entering the land. It involves the plastered stones for writing, the unhewn whole stone altar for peace, the divided tribes acting as a giant amphitheater on Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, and those 12 strict declarations of community boundaries that definitively transform the Israelites into a unified nation under God.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Will you say amen to upholding justice and integrity in your own daily life? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.